Hi, this is Bob Dittmer, and you're watching Explorations in Public Relations. In this short series of video explorations, we take a look at the practice and the profession of public relations. And today, we're going to be talking about the use of social media in highly regulated industries. Our guest today is Rob Muller, and Rob is the Associate Marketing Director at Roche Diagnostics. Rob, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Rob, tell us a little bit about what you do at Roche Diagnostics and how that works into the social media arena.
Well, social media is the bright, shiny object right now in just about any marketing space, and everybody wants to be part of it. Before, where people were kind of burying their head in the sand and hope it would go away, I think they're realizing that it's not going anywhere. And that's smart, and it's good that they realize that. And when you're working for a company that is multinational and truly global, it's good to make sure that if you're going to enter the space, that you do so wisely, that you do so in a manner that is conducive to engagement with your intended audience. And the most important thing to consider about that is just to make sure your messages are consistent and that they're on message with what your audience is wanting to talk about. Because right now, with all the channels available, they don't have to come to your channel. You know, for years as marketers and public relations professionals, we're told to control the message. Right now, we can only hope to be part of the conversation.
Right.
So if you don't come in with relevant, germane material that will pique their interest, or at least hits them where their pain is, they don't have to pay attention to you because they can go a myriad other places.
That's a good point.
So it's good to set a strong keynote to make sure that your messaging across all boundaries and all barriers is consistent and it's relevant to what they want to talk about.
And those are absolutely the most important points with anybody's use of social media today. You work in a very regulated industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the device industry, and so the FDA has certain rules, regulations, or maybe not, that pertain to this. What kind of strictures do you operate under? What kind of limitations are you forced to work with?
Well, the FDA has yet to be 100% clear on what it is they want. They're coming out with their social media guidelines, so everybody's been waiting on pins and needles, you know, to see exactly what they're going to direct. But for the most part, as long as you stay away from product messages or product marketing in social spaces, that's a good rule of thumb. And the reason it's good is twofold. Number one, it's not the space for it. Number two, people don't care about your product messages in social spaces, so they're not going there looking for that anyway. We've talked to different online communities and bloggers in particular, and they've told us point blank, if we want product information, we know exactly where to go to find it.
You have websites for that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what they're for. If they go to a website, they're coming for a specific purpose, you know, to get information about you, your products, contact information, product information, a manual maybe. But when they go to social spaces, they're wanting to find a solution to a problem, to ease pain, to find kinship, to find support. And when you're in a regulated industry like the pharmaceutical industries, yes, you've got to, you know, mind the regulations, of course, but at the same time, that almost helps you in a way be mindful of the audience that you're trying to reach anyway, because frankly, again, you can't control the channel.
No, you can't. And really, you can't even control the message today.
Right.
The consumer controls the message.
That's
and the
exactly
dialogue
right.
and the conversation. Now, these channels, what social channels are you using today that seem to make sense for your company?
Well, there's a few. You know, in many countries have many different platforms.
Sure.
But it's amazing how Facebook has just exploded across the board in all the different countries. In the U.S., obviously, it's very strong. In Canada, it's very strong. In the UK, it's getting very strong. In Eastern Europe, it's getting incredibly strong. We have a very strong presence in Poland on Facebook. So globally, Facebook is kind of the platform. But as you know, Facebook could be swept away tomorrow by one thing that makes it somewhat irrelevant.
Who knows what will happen.
So it's more about the message and your approach. So what we're doing is we're developing maybe blogs in some countries to where it might not be completely two-way communication because of regulations, but we want to offer good, valuable information to touch people where they're feeling pain. You know, in our case, in diabetes, for Roche Diabetes Care, it is specifically, what does my number mean on my meter? I don't know how many times I hear in our listening platforms, which incidentally, listening by far and away is the most important thing in social media. You have to listen so you know what's relevant.
The social media does actually give us the best platform we've ever had for listening, doesn't it?
Yeah,
we used to
absolutely it does.
listen by conducting research. Today we don't need to do research. We just need to give people an opportunity to tell us what they think.
And that's exactly right.
And it gives us a great platform for that.
It is like real-time marketing research all the time. And it's funny because you'd think it would be all over the place and scattershot. It's really not at all. It tends to focus on a few areas, and that may change and pendulate, if you will, but it always sticks in the areas that are the most important to that community. So at least you know, I mean, we can think something is very important, but that doesn't mean the community is going to think it's important.
Absolutely. And which one is important?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
the community thinks.
Right now, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it always has been, but now
Right.
we have the vehicle at our fingertips all the time.
Now you're in the blogosphere, and you guys did something fairly interesting, something like a year ago or so. Tell us about your blogger conference and what you did and what you learned from that.
Well, what we wanted to do was reach out to the blogging community and find common ground where we can work together, because you know, in the pharmaceutical industries, a lot of times we're viewed as just a collection of austere buildings and a logo, and people really don't understand that there's people who care behind that name and that image. And so what we wanted to do was find common ground, how we could work together to create greater good in the industry and greater understanding. So we reached out to 26 of the most influential bloggers in North America. Many of them have, you know, multinational outreach across the board, and we simply sat down with them and asked them, okay, how can we work together? What is it that you would like to see us do, and what is it that we should stay away from like it's the third rail? How can we work together? And the whole time, mind you, they're looking at us somewhat askance, like just waiting for a commercial or for the other shoe to drop. And when it was all over and none of that happened, there was a great receptivity to what we were trying to do and to accomplish, so much so that we just had in June this past year the second Blogger Summit in Orlando, Florida. And this time we had about 30. And not only were we able to talk with them again about how we can work together, but we were able to bring in the American Diabetes Association and the Association of Diabetes Educators for them to kind of give them a platform to talk to them about circumstances. So now not only are we communicating with the community, but we're facilitating communication with important people to them.
So you basically learned what you used from the bloggers to inform how you could better offer community platforms that people could share information.
Absolutely.
And you could be a part of that information sharing as well.
Absolutely.
And you also determined what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate in their eyes.
In their
not
eyes.
your eyes, not in the FDA's eyes,
Right.
but in their eyes.
Right.
Very interesting.
It was, and you know, as a bunch of bloggers, they're a verbose bunch. They weren't shy about telling us what they wanted to see us do and what they didn't, and it was incredibly valuable. I mean, can you imagine a better focus group?
No, I
You know, these who not only are they concerned about their opinions, but they take very seriously the constituency of their readership and what their feelings and pains are as well. So we got a great reflection of their readership as well as their own opinions. So I think it was a magnificent. A lot of people saw it as fraught with danger, you know, because they could go out and blog and tweet and you know, post anything they wanted about the event while it was happening. They could go into the bathroom on their PDA and, you know, or their iPhone. Yeah, it doesn't matter, and say whatever they wanted about us. But
I'll bet they did.
They did.
And what was the outcome?
The outcome was incredibly positive.
Wonderful.
I mean, overwhelmingly positive. There was still some, I still am not 100% sure why they asked us here.
Healthy skepticism.
Healthy skepticism, but that's really turned into healthy relationships.
Wonderful. That's a great story. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who could borrow from that story and perhaps take heart that there is a way to work in the social media without compromising your messaging, and using the social media as a conversation point, a listening platform, something we hear a lot about these days, a listening platform to understand our, I hate to use the word markets better, because our markets are just people, and that's what we're creating relationships with.
And it's never been more clear that it's people than it is now.
Right.
And irrespective of whether you work in a regulated industry or not, I mean, that is where your best research is going to come from, because there's no shortage of people that are willing to tell you what they think.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
Now, did you get any pushback from the FDA over this?
We didn't get any pushback from the FDA about it. Matter of fact, to my knowledge, we haven't heard really anything from them about it.
Oh.
So, because I think it was so healthy, and a lot of the bloggers have testified before the FDA, telling them, you know, what they want
In preparation for the
relationships.
promulgation of these regulations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and telling them what they want for manufacturers,
Sure.
and maybe how communication should be maybe a little more open, you know, between some of them. I don't think that had anything to do with the summit, but I think it certainly didn't hurt.
Gotcha, gotcha. So we expect to see some regulatory rulings out of the FDA end of the year? Is that what they're telling us now?
Yeah, end of the year.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to those. And
We will.
perhaps they will be informed from your experience at Roche Diagnostics.
I think they might be in some way, shape, or form. I do believe so.
Well, let's hope so. Rob, thank you for joining us today.
It was an absolute pleasure, Bob. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Explorations in Public Relations. Join us again in the near future when we explore additional issues and topics in public relations.